Now we move on to our next session. The Cyprus Marine and Maritime Institution will discuss implication of the Fit for 55 legislation package on the Cyprus economy. The session is co-organized with CMMI. CMMI has established the Cyprus Decarbonization Hub, which is activated in research related to alternative fuels and innovative technologies towards decarbonization. They have recently published a paper regarding the implications of Fit for 55, presenting a software that supports the assessment and quantification of Fit for 55. Let us give a warm welcome to Panos Theodorou, Director, Assurance, ESG and Sustainability Services, Deloitte, Alexandros Josephides, Deputy Director General Marine Manager, Cyprus Shipping Chamber, Ioannis Efstratiou, Director, Safety and Environmental Protection Directorate, Shipping Deputy Ministry, Maria Kyratsoudi, Business Development Manager, ABS, George Partasides, Industrial Extension Officer, Ministry of Energy, Commerce and Industry. The panel will be moderated by Elias Yfantis, Senior Scientist at CMMI. Welcome. Καλώς ορίσατε. Thank you. I know it's, well, yeah, sort of after lunch, but thank you for the warm round of applause.
Καλησπέρα. Να ξεκινήσουμε ευχαριστώντας το Cyprus Forum γιατί μας έδωσε τη δυνατότητα στο CMMI, το Cyprus Marine and Maritime Institute, να διοργανώσει μια, θα αποδειχθεί πιστεύω, ενδιαφέρουσα συζήτηση πάνω σε ένα θέμα το οποίο είναι εξαιρετικά ενδιαφέρον. Όταν αρχίσαμε και εμείς στο CMMI να ασχολούμαστε με το Fit for 55, δεν περιμέναμε ότι οι εξελίξεις θα το έκαναν ακόμη περισσότερο ενδιαφέρον. Θα ήθελα να καλωσορίσω και να ευχαριστήσω τους εκλεκτούς προσκεκλημένους αυτής της σημερινής κουβέντας, οι οποίοι είχαν την καλοσύνη να αποδεχθούν την πρόσκλησή μας, έτσι ώστε να συνθέσουμε μια ομάδα που θα μπορούσε να καλύψει κατά το δυνατόν όλες τις πτυχές που αφορούν στο Fit for 55. Είναι κοντά μας λοιπόν ο Πάνος, ο Αλέξανδρος, η Μαρία, ο Γιάννης και ο Γιώργος. Ήδη έχει γίνει το introduction από τη Μέλανη, την οποία ευχαριστώ. Ήδη τον Ιούλιο του 2021 η Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή δημοσίευσε μια δέσμη μέτρων που αποκλήθηκε στη Living Fit for 55 και σκοπός ήταν να κάνει πιο αυστηρές τις πρόνοιες, να κάνει πιο αυστηρές τις προβλέψεις για το πόσο και κατά πόσο θα μειωθούν οι εκπομπές διοξειδίου του άνθρακα στην Ευρώπη. Έτσι, είχαμε μέχρι τότε το 40% και τώρα ζητούμε την Ευρώπη να κατέβει κατά 55%. Αυτό φυσικά είναι στο ευρύτερο πλαίσιο του ότι θέλουμε μια Ευρώπη που το 2050 να είναι ουδέτερη ως προς τον άνθρακα. Είναι φιλόδοξη η στόχη και θα πρέπει να ξεκινήσουμε με δύο βασικές παρατηρήσεις. Μετά τον Ιούλιο του 2021 έχουμε δύο πολύ σημαντικές εξελίξεις. Έχουμε μια έκρηξη στις τιμές της ενέργειας και έχουμε και ένα συμβάν. Έχουμε γεγονότα στο Ρωσο-Ουκρανικό, έχουμε πόλεμο, που και τα δύο έχουν προκαλέσει τεράστια αναταραχή και στις αγορές και στο εμπόριο και ειδικότερα στην ενέργεια. Να ξεκινήσουμε από σένα πάνω. Θα ήθελα να δούμε, να εξετάσουμε αν και κατά πόσον αυτές οι δύο εξελίξεις, δραματικές και οι δύο, θα μπορούσαν να επηρεάσουν είτε επιταχυντικά το Fit for 55, δηλαδή αφού έχω μεγαλύτερη ανάγκη να πάω πιο γρήγορα, είτε επιβραδυτικά, διότι προφανώς δημιουργούν κάποια εμπόδια. Ποια είναι η γνώμη σου?
Ευχαριστώ, Ηλία, και καλησπέρα σε όλους και από μένα. Εντάξει, κοιτάξτε. Νομίζω αυτή η περίοδος, εκτός από τα δύο συμβάντα που έχουν συμβεί, έχουμε δει καταστροφικά συμβάντα τα οποία προκληθήκαν από την κλιματική αλλαγή το τελευταίο 1,5 χρόνο. Είχαμε δει τι γίνεται στην Κεντρική Ευρώπη, είχαμε δει τι γίνεται στο Πακιστάν, συμβάντα τα οποία δεν περιμέναμε να γίνουν στις επόμενες δεκαετίες. και νομίζω αυτό καταδεικνύει τη σημαντικότητα του να κάνουμε act now, να κάνουμε act όσο πιο γρήγορα γίνεται. Από πλευράς του πολέμου, σίγουρα, εντάξει, αυτό έχει καταδείξει γενικά ότι ίσως δεν πρέπει να είμαστε dependent πάνω σε αυταρχικά καθεστώτα. Εντάξει, κάτι που ίσως πρέπει να έχουμε και υπόψη όταν βλέποντας και να κάνουμε το transition σε ανανεώσιμες πηγές ενέργειας, αλλά που προέρχονται αυτά τα μέταλλα κτλ. Είναι κάτι γενικά που πρέπει να δούμε πώς μπορούμε να είμαστε πιο αυτάρκεις ενεργειακά. Από πλευράς του πληθωρισμού, σίγουρα πιστεύω ότι αυτό προκλήθηκε κυρίως από την αύξηση των ενεργειακών τιμών. Και οι ενεργειακές τιμές σίγουρα δεν προκλήθηκαν από την πράσινη μετάβαση, αλλά νομίζω δείχνουν πραγματικά την αναγκαιότητα να προχωρήσουν πιο γρήγορα στην πράσινη μετάβαση. Άρα και ο πληθωρισμός, εντάξει, και το 50-55 σίγουρα θα υπάρχουν κάποια αρνητικές επιπτώσεις στον πληθωρισμό, επειδή θα υπάρξει κάποια αύξηση στο κόστος του καταναλωτή κτλ. Αλλά νομίζω είναι γεγονός ότι όλα αυτά συμβάλλουν στο ότι το Fit for 55 θα πρέπει να ενταθούν οι προσπάθειες. Σίγουρα θα αποτελέσει ένα βασικό νομοθετικό πλαίσιο που νομίζω πρέπει να εφαρμοστεί, όχι να εφαρμοστεί, αλλά να γίνει κόπη γενικά σε όλο τον κόσμο, επειδή ώστε να εναρμονιστούν και οι αγορές και η ανταγωνιστικότητα των ευρωπαϊκών επιχειρήσεων με τις υπόλοιπες. Άρα, σίγουρα το 55 μαζί με κάποια άλλα νομοθετικά πλαίσια που εφαρμόζει τώρα η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, όπως το Corporate Social Responsibility Reporting Directive, το οποίο προσπαθεί να δείξει λίγο πιο transparency των πόσο πράσινες είναι οι εταιρείες. Υπάρχει το Due Diligence Directive, βγαίνει τώρα από πόσο πράσινες υφοδεστικές αλυσίδες, αλλά όλα αυτά μαζί νομίζω πρέπει να επιταχύνουν τις προσπάθειες που κάνει η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση για να κάνουμε αυτό το green transition.
Ωραία. Μαρία, πιστεύεις ότι δεδομένων των συνθήκων υπάρχει πιθανότητα ή ενδεχόμενο να υπάρξει κάποια αλλίωση σε αυτές τις πρόνοιες του Fit for 55, δηλαδή στη δέσμη των 12 μέτρων παρεμβάσεων, πιστεύεις ότι υπάρχει πιθανότητα κάποια να αλλοιωθούν?
Καταρχάς, καλησπέρα. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για την πρόσκληση. Όσον αφορά... Λοιπόν, υπάρχουν κάποια τεχνικά κομμάτια στο νομοθετικό κείμενο, τα οποία δεν έχουν τελειώσει και γίνονται ακόμα διαβουλεύσεις μεταξύ του Council και του Parliament. Αυτά τα τεχνικά κομμάτια, όμως, όπως προανέφερα, είναι αμιγώς τεχνικά. Δεν έχουν σχέση να κάνουν με την παράταση του κανονισμού ή με την διαφοροποίηση των όριων. Τα όρια έχουν μπει, θα τεθεί σε εφαρμογή, όπως είναι να τεθεί σε εφαρμογή το κανονιστικό πλαίσιο. Η χρονολογία υπάρχει, αλλά η άποψη... Αυτά είναι όσον αφορά αυτό το σημείο. Τώρα, υπάρχει μια ενεργειακή κρίση, η οποία έχει επιδεινωθεί εξαιτίας του πολέμου. Αυτό δεν λαμβάνεται υπόψη, δηλαδή δεν θα κάνουν πίσω, επειδή ακριβώς υπάρχει ενεργειακή κρίση, πάμε κανονικά για την εφαρμογή των μέτρων. Προκειμένου όμως να μπορέσει να εξομαλύνει λίγο την κατάσταση, η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση πριν από λίγους μήνες, προφανώς έχετε ακούσει, έχει εφαρμόσει ή θα εφαρμόσει το REPowerEU, με στόχο να αποδεσμευτεί πρακτικά η Ευρώπη από τη Ρωσία όσον αφορά τα fossil fuels. Έτσι λοιπόν στηρίζεται σε κάποια καινούρια μέτρα. Θέλει πλέον η Ευρώπη να είναι σχεδόν αυτόνομη σε αυτά τα πράγματα. Αν όχι αυτόνομη, τουλάχιστον να μην έχει καμία σύνδεση με τη Ρωσία. Βάζει υπόψη της, θέτει τα energy savings σαν ένα κομμάτι, θέτει το diversification του energy supply σαν ένα δεύτερο κομμάτι. Θέλει πάρα πολύ να επιταχυνθεί η χρησιμοποίηση των ανανεώσιμων πηγών ενέργειας, οπότε έρχεται και βάζει πολύ, θα έλεγα, μεγαλεπίβολους στόχους, όχι με την κακή έννοια, αλλά αντικειμενικά μεγαλεπίβολους στόχους όσον αφορά να επιτευχθούν τα συγκεκριμένα όρια. Ένα χαρακτηριστικό παράδειγμα είναι, παραδείγματος χάρη, ότι απαιτείται να διπλασιαστεί η παραγωγή σε βιομεθάνια από 17
from 17 billion cubic tons cubic meters to 35.
Πρέπει να παράγονται 20
Also,
εκατομμύρια
we need to produce 20 million tons of hydrogen, 10 of which coming from Europe and 10 from other countries, but not from Russia. So this legislative framework is there, and a new legislative framework is introduced by Europe to smoothen this process to green transitions. Now, if this will lead to a smoother process in practice, this remains to be seen.
Απάντηση από την Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση έχω πάρει, τουλάχιστον στο πολιτικό πεδίο.
At political level, we have an answer from the EU that the targets are there, the decisions are there, and as you said, there is no change in that. But with Repower EU, the EU wants to further to become more independent from Russia, but at the same time, we see that there are decisions that extend the operation of nuclear plants that we're going to close down. And Alexandros, we also see an increase in the imports of coal in Europe. We see what's happening in the ports in Rotterdam, for example, more coal supply. So do you think that more steps backwards will be taken because there are political decisions on one hand, but in practice we see other things? I would like to thank the Cyprus Institute, the Cyprus Marine and Maritime Institute and the organizers for the invitation. I will give you the perspective of the shipping, the private shipping industry. I would say that we are acting as transporters, and this development, unfortunately, the invasion of Russia in Ukraine has interrupted the flow of natural gas, and we do understand that Europe, in view of the upcoming winter, will try to cover its energy needs with a raw material that can be used immediately and can be consumed in electricity-producing plants in Europe. So there is this turn towards coal that may bring us back on the effort to implement the policy that we want within the set time frames. It's a step backwards. But this increased use of coal will be reduced over time because we see the countries of Europe coming out and trying to find other suppliers of natural gas. So in the initial stage, and this year and over the next few years, over the next 5 years, we will not be able to avoid coal as an alternative fuel because right now we don't have enough quantities of natural gas out there that will cover the needs of Europe compared to the supplies provided by Russia up to now. And to add the perspective of the shipping industry, I have to confess that we are going to have a significant benefit as an industry because the transportation of natural gas will not take place through pipelines but by vessels, and of course those who have built vessels transporting natural gas will gain from that. Of course, the need to import coal from more distant countries requires greater transportation, so this will be shipping and ships will benefit from this. We will import coal into Europe, but I think that over time and gradually Europe will manage to become independent from the Russian supply of natural gas. And so in a few years, I hope that Europe will be at the stage where it can reach the targets it has set. And there's also a paradox, as you said, over the next 2, 3, or 4 years, the shipping industry will continue to transport coal, but it will also pay penalties for producing carbon. So, George, Maria has talked about Repower EU, this new package, and we see the political objectives of Europe. Do you think that these are attainable regarding
από τη Ρωσία. Άρα,
independence from Russia immediately, so finding other sources, and secondly, promoting alternative sources of energy. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the support provided by CMMI at the ministry regarding the targets. Before answering, I would say that it would be good to see how these targets are set and how they come out of the consultations with the various member states. So before a target is there, there's a lot of consultation in each area. For example, in renewable energy sources, in particular, they examine the technical capacity of each country. There are some exemptions. For example, in Cyprus, we had an exemption because we don't have electrical connectivity as other countries do. So the bet here is not whether we're going to reach the targets. Yes, we can reach the targets. The problem is when and at what cost. So it's very important in the areas that are already advanced and where we have the technological capacity to give more emphasis on those areas so that we can reach the rest of our targets when technologies are more mature and more competitive. In the case of hydrogen, for example, and I'm referring to the storage of energy and electric mobility, etc. So once we have a fixed plan, we can help investors know what they are dealing with, and we need to look at the final cost for consumers, which is our main concern as a ministry. So there are various difficulties in this process. The circumstances are changing, technologies are changing. There are certain mechanisms in Europe which do not respond as they should in terms of time. Now with the crisis, for example, we see that by the time they take decisions at European level, they are taking measures in the meantime because there's a great delay in all the members agreeing to new measures. So each country is taking its own measures to some extent. And as Europe, we need to find the mechanisms to provide flexibility. This is what we are requesting as Cyprus as well, to leave things to member states to some extent because the game is changing. We are entering the next decade and the cost of energy will not comprise the technologies of the last decade, and this gives an incentive. So whoever is first, is leading, they will have an advantage, especially in interconnected countries. As regards the prospects for natural gas, our permanent secretary has already said that we can be an exporting country. Europe by 2050 will have needs in natural gas, more than 50 BCM according to its plans in 2050. So, of course, we cannot become independent from Russia from one day to the next. That is why we need coal and other technologies as transitional fuel until Europe itself can make use of its own deposits, including the deposits in Cyprus, Greece, Ireland, etc., so that we can become self-sufficient as Europe. This is something that all the member states should look at and pursue. Although it may have an additional cost, the money will stay within Europe and it will be recapitalized and it can be used for other investments. And gradually we will have the hydrogen and methane technologies, ammonium, green ammonium. We have some pilot projects on that as well. And all of these technologies will be there for us in the future. The main problem in Cyprus, as you know, has to do with the storage of energy. I think we will talk about that a little bit later. But generally, we are optimistic. We have exceeded the target for 2020 regarding renewable energy sources as Cyprus. transportation, half of the countries of Europe have not reached their targets in terms of transport, more than half of the countries. So Europe itself has realized that something needs to change there in the transportation model. And now with the new fuel like methane, biomethane and hydrogen, and of course electric mobility, they are trying to promote other practices to reach the targets of 2030. There is also another issue that is important in my view, the carbon border adjustment mechanism, as we call it, which is the cornerstone on European policies. And in addition to the EU ETS, the trading scheme, and the Council has agreed that products such as fertilizers, iron, steel, etc., come under this mechanism, this monitoring mechanism. And a question is for you, George, what are the direct or indirect impacts for the energy system of Cyprus based on the specificities of the island? And I'm saying this because we are talking about goods that are being traded and that are of major importance. These are not luxury goods. We're talking about steel, iron, cement, production of electricity. All of that comes under this mechanism. As you know, all this is under discussion. The package is not complete. And right now, with the energy issue, I don't know how the package will develop. And I will give you an example regarding energy. As Cyprus right now, we are conducting a study in collaboration with Egypt and Israel on how energy will be transported, and I'm referring to natural gas from Cyprus to Europe. So one scenario we're looking at is that if the natural gas is going to Europe through Egypt, it comes under this mechanism. If it goes directly from Cyprus to Europe, then it does not. So the mechanism, of course, there's a lot of work to do for this mechanism. They focused on the goods, but regarding the energy mix, I think that there are a lot of discussions to be made before there is a conclusion on the package. The Department of Environment is discussing that as well. The position of Cyprus is that as Europe, we need to have a holistic approach. The energy security of Europe should be more important than the mechanism, and the countries that will contribute to lifting the energy isolation of Europe should be exempted from this mechanism as regards energy. So as regards raw materials, cement, etc., there is capacity in Cyprus as well. There we should also introduce some exemptions because our market has to do with Turkey mostly, that does not come under the regulation, and our buyer is Egypt and other countries in the Eastern Mediterranean, and there seems to be a problem with exports, and Cyprus does not seem to consent with these, and we are asking for exemptions. Alternatively, we need to look at European markets and how, and I'm talking about exports. Regarding imports, from the countries, we haven't analyzed that, I have to say, how this will impact our economy. We carried out some preliminary studies, but it seems that the cost, especially in new housing, will increase. New houses will increase. The cost of building new houses because we don't have cheap raw materials, and there's the occupied areas as well, where this is a way out for some people. This is something that we are discussing with the Commission because we cannot leave our industries, for example, have all these limitations and restrictions, and then we have goods coming in freely from the occupied area, the way they're coming in, which we cannot control. So all of this is under discussion. So this is an issue of concern for us, the issue of competitiveness, because there is the issue of all the areas of economy that are being affected.
Όχι long term, αλλά τουλάχιστον στα επόμενα χρόνια που αυτή είναι η πραγματικότητα για την κυπριακή οικονομία. Πώς βλέπεις το θέμα της ανταγωνιστικότητας, ειδικά επειδή η Κύπρος, όπως συνηθίζω να λέω, σε σχέση με το Fit for 55, καλό θα ήταν να ήταν ένα νησί στη Βαλτική, δεν θα έχει κανένα πρόβλημα. Αλλά γύρω-γύρω, οι χώρες είναι εκτός Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης, άρα υπάρχουν σοβαρά ζητήματα στην ανταγωνιστικότητα.
So we have huge issues in terms of competitiveness.
Στην Ευρώπη
we outsourced our carbon emissions, and this is what they're trying to deter with this legislative framework to urge other countries to take more strict measures. And what was mentioned before is that we are an importing country, so we had some exemptions with the ETS system, and now this will be phased out, and this will also affect our exports to the EU. And as you said, fertilizers will mean increased cost for farmers, etc. Steel, iron, that will have an impact on the building, on the construction sector, and maybe tourism as well. So obviously our society will be affected, but there is a provision to protect the most vulnerable groups. We'll see if that will be decided. And Cyprus, of course, will take advantage of that and will be able to protect vulnerable households at least.
Εντάξει, άρα νομίζω
συμπληρώσω ακόμα κάτι, γιατί ένα σημαντικό θέμα που υπάρχει στην προέλευση είναι το starting point της κάθε χώρας. Δηλαδή, όταν ξεκίνησε να συζητιέται το CPM, δεν είχαν λάβει υπόψη το σημείο αφετηρίας, δηλαδή ποιο ήταν το υφιστάμενο
the existing energy mix of each country. And although many countries are mentioning this, it is not reflected in this CBAM mechanism. This is something we're trying to reconsider right now, and my opinion at technocratic level, looking at the maths, is that this should be a dynamic that will take into account the energy mix of each country at the starting point of the introduction of this regulation. It is very unfair for a country that has 90% hydroelectric power to compete with a country that started at 10%, and we're in a disadvantageous position because we don't have the power that Scandinavian countries have. Let's go back to the shipping industry indirectly, based on the provisions for the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation. There is a provision to increase the availability of LNG and the availability of hydrogen. There is a provision to provide electricity to vessels in ports. For coal and iron, we think that Cyprus should have, it seems that Cyprus should have approximately 40 megawatt on demand, and because of the periodicity and seasonality and the prospect of having two cruise ships and two container ships at the same time in Limassol, these are the needs. So this energy, this capacity needs to come from renewable energy sources. So we need to have a photovoltaic system that will have an installed capacity of 240 megawatts. So that we can have 40 megawatts available on demand. Is the infrastructure ready for that? Do we have the projects that will allow Cyprus to address these challenges?
The energy system of Cyprus, as you know, is isolated. Our network is specific, and the technical potential that we have from photovoltaic is enormous. So definitely, as you know, we have already surpassed our goals. We have 445 megawatts from renewables in general, and our goal for 2030 was to reach 1,000. So we are on a good path. What we need now, as I mentioned before, is to have storage systems and to have this electric interconnectivity, because the two main problems of Cyprus are the big changes between summer and winter, because the demand in energy changes, shifts enormously. So due to tourism, we have the shift, and we could use renewables during some months of the year, but during the other months we will either store energy or lose it. And we have an existing network which can accept up to 2,000 megawatts. This is based on a research that was conducted, but land planning is a problem, because we might have a network, but we might not have the land for it. We have just conducted a research. We're trying to connect these two maps among each other in order to see the technical potential regarding the network. And of course, this network must be expanded, must become smart, must become stronger and more resilient. We have received funding from Cyprus for Tomorrow, from this program, in order to foster this network in the next decade, and to try to reduce cuts and increase capacity. And I don't think that 240 megawatts that are needed by ships are a big volume. We already have about 180 megawatts that are under construction as we speak. And we have more than 600 megawatts that are waiting to receive their license to get connected with the network. And we have great interest from big investors that try to receive the okay to proceed. So the network is under construction. It is delaying, but it is something that is already happening. It was mentioned before as well. We have received 656 million in order to implement this program that will interconnect Cyprus, Crete, and Israel, and 100 additional millions from the fund Cyprus of Tomorrow. This project will cost 1.6 billion in total. This is the total cost for all three countries. So do you believe in specific that coal and iron has this potential? So we have this investment intentions for photovoltaic. So do you believe that there is availability, there is capacity in order to build this infrastructure? Do we have the necessary know-how? Do we have the necessary personnel, the necessary technical personnel in order to construct this infrastructure? I think we have the technological institutes, we have research institutes that can help us in these ventures. But yes, of course, if we see the financial perspective as well, ports will have to take into consideration additional expenses and see how they can build capacity in their ships. But I think that we also see this European taxonomy that classifies activities as green activities, and there is a potential there, a potential of gaining capital that can fund our programs. And I think that Cyprus will be ready from the financial point of view and also from the technological point of view to cover these plans. So it is important to expand this network, to see internal needs, but also external needs, in order to foster our shipping industry. So this is a demand, I would say. The shipping industry must have by 2030 the appropriate infrastructure, and also ports must be able to interconnect with the ships. Yes, exactly. Ports are next to cities. So there is a research now saying that it is very handful to have ports close to cities. Although we see that it is bad for air pollution, for the quality of air in cities, you have a more general picture of the connection of steel fleets, by 2030. How do you see it? Is this possible from the point of view of sustainability? And especially here in Cyprus, do you believe that in the international fleet we will have a percentage of ready ships that will be able to use coal iron or liquid natural gas or hydrogens in the ports? So allow me please to thank the organizers of Cyprus Forum for this panel. This is the first time I'm allowed to speak in this panel, so I couldn't say this before. It is a very interesting conference with a very rich thematic, and yes, in this very rich thematic, there was also place for us from the shipping industry. I'm not sure if this is very interesting for the general audience. I think many people from the audience left when we started talking, because we were talking about sports before, and sports need their audience. But we hope we will be able to keep you during this panel. So, okay, let's come back to the question. I'm not trying to avoid it, don't think that. So, in relation to the Cypriot shipping industry, we must explain that there are two sides to the story regarding Cyprus as a shipping state and regarding Cyprus with more implications for our economy. So I will talk about Cyprus as a shipping state, as a shipping industry state. Firstly, we said that shipping companies are benefiting right now from this increase in different fees in the maritime industry. But we must not be opportunistic when we assess this situation. We have to see what will come along in the next years. And some people must adjust, and some people will need to leave the industry, as it happens in nature. So legislators have to have a realistic approach, and I think we do have a realistic approach, and I must say that the shipping industry right now is considered the most sustainable transport mean. It is the cause of only about 3% of pollutants, but of course we have to promote decarbonization. So we must find ways in order to achieve our main goal, which I said before is decarbonization. Yes, we talked about sports before, and now we're talking about more complex issues. It's an issue of international survival, Paris Agreement and so on. We have to get serious about it. Each one of us has to contribute, and the shipping industry will also contribute. Either they want to, either they don't. Right now, do we have any ships that can use already liquid natural gas? I must say that gas is based on carbon, so it is an intermediate fuel. So by 2050, it should not be used in Europe. So don't think it's a panacea. We have to see further in the future. But what is gas? So we need to create machines that can burn gas. We might have around 400 such engines around the world, and we are talking about 60,000 and more ships. So ships with dual engines are not in abundance right now and are not waiting for us to sell to them gas. But the development show that many will transform and will start using this type of fuels, because they understand that if we will find an alternative of non-carbon-based fuels, whatever this might be, I hope we will be able to find these renewables. So, with some modifications, the combustion of these not carbon-based fuels will be possible. And another thing that is a bit more specified, based on the regulation of the International Maritime Law, we understand that there are different classes for fuels and different classes of ships. And ships that belong to classes that cannot receive their license for for competitiveness with energy criteria, will need to proceed to improvements. So, as maritime administration, we have to face the problems and find the ways to keep the fleet we have right now, from which we say that it's nice. We are 11th in Europe, we are third in the world, but in order to remain sustainable, we need to have the appropriate tools. So hand in hand, we move on in order to maintain what we have achieved until now. I was the last to get the floor, but now you see I have kept it for a while. Yes, but exactly because I also believe this. When we legislate, the only way to implement legislation is to implement it in a cemetery, because you can do whatever you want there, you won't have any reactions. But the shipping industry is an industry that has proven to be very resilient during many difficult times. And what I believe is, because we're talking specific about Cyprus, is that when penalty is at 100% at the moment when we have a journey between different ports of Europe, or 50% when the journey is between ports of Europe and ports outside of Europe, we expect a country that reaches different ports to have different reactions. So we see that transportation can start with the bigger ships and be continued with smaller ships that are not under this criteria. What do you think, Alexandros? I want to say to my friend Ioannis that these efforts have to be collective. This will be my concluding remark as well. But as Maria and Ioannis said before, the proposals of the Commission are still under processing. The Council has provided their own recommendations, and these have to be negotiated in order to reach an agreement and have the final conclusions and the ECS final text, in order to have a clear picture of the ways that the ATS will affect the shipping industry as well. ATS also includes the shipping industry, and the audience must understand that it's not the same to add 60,000 small ships to the ATS, small ships in relation to big industries of the land. So there are different things that have to be taken into consideration in the shipping industry, but we will try to collaborate with all the other industries because this is about the future of our Earth and we have to reduce emissions. So we see that the carbon dioxide emissions have this scheme of exchanging rights, and this will be promoted in the European market, that you will have to pay for all of your emissions. It seems that we are lagging behind regarding the agreement that should be reached through the three organizations of the European Union. We have the European Parliament that has made a recommendation and said that the integration of the shipping industry should not be gradual. We should not reach 50%, 75% before we reach 100% integration. But they are saying that we might be forced to pay 100% of the pollutants we emit as soon as we leave Europe. So Europe, in order to avoid the creation of big loading stations and have this leakage of carbon, the European Parliament and the European Commission suggested to allow to ports which are not too close to Europe to be used as internal ports. So based on this fact, some countries that are abroad, that are not within the European borders might benefit, but we understand that in our area, it will change the planning of the ships, and this will be decided upon by the different shipping officers of the different European countries, because they are the ones who give the final orders of the destinations of the ships and of the speed they are allowed to travel. So we understand that whatever happens will impose great expenses to the shipping industry because the decarbonization has to be paid, and there is no way to avoid it. As said before, in order to have benefits of these small areas of loading, of ship loading, we will not be able to benefit, from this opportunity due to the geographical position of our island. So we will not have these areas where ships could change the load and change to smaller vessels. Do you agree with what has been said? Because we have young people in the audience and we're talking with very technical terms that might not be understood. We're talking about the price, the carbon price and so on. So please allow me to analyze it. I will not take much of your time. This tie might cost 10 euros. 1 euro is shipping costs. You know, in Cyprus, I think we all understand that we import things from the sea. So 97% of our products is imported through the sea. So there is a shipping cost. Let's say that petrol is at $500 now. Should we talk about dollars or euros? Okay, let's talk about euros. So let's say that petrol is at 500 euros. And this contribute 10% to the shipping cost. What does the carbon price mean? It means that so you're using petrol, you are using oil. This has 3.2 carbon dioxide emissions. Some people haven't realized, but right now, carbon dioxide has a price, and this is at about 80, 90 euros. It's at about 90 euros. So 3.2 times 90 has to be added to the 500 euros that was the price of the product. So we will have to improve the energy mix as we did with cars. So we will have to replace this a big percentage with biofuels. Right now, biofuels are more expensive than conventional fuels. So this will be equal to additional expenses. So, I'm not even talking about taxes yet. So you understand that these 500 euros turn into more than 1,000. So this tie that was 10 euro will be 11 euro. So you have to understand this is the carbon pricing. We must be ready as an island to pay this price. There is a way to avoid what you said, this escape. How did you call it? Yeah, I said leakage. Carbon leakage. That's how we call it, carbon leakage. So we tried through legislation to find the ways that were described by Alexis before. I don't want to repeat them because I used my time to explain what this carbon price means. So we must understand that what has to be done indeed, and what we have to bear in mind is not how we will start based on legislation, but how we will found fuels that do not pollute the environment and that are compatible with the Paris Agreement and that will stop global warming. So we will have to find non-carbon-based fuels. We must understand that biogas is also based on coal, so we are not talking about zero emissions. We're not talking about absolute zero, we're talking about net zero. So rather than focusing on ways to escape this situation, and this is not an obligation of the industry only, finding new fuels is also the responsibility of people who produce fuels. So, yeah, shipping industry must improve energy performance, but the West has to find solutions in order to improve the situation on our planet overall. You talked about sports, so you gave me this opportunity to mention what follows. We have these very ambitious goals, and this is very nice, but are we ready? Are we there yet to find solutions that are available, that are mature, that are implementable, and that are approachable? Because legislation is one thing, is an incentive, penalties is an incentive, but despite of that, we need also solutions. And are we ready to provide these solutions? I really liked what you said, but I don't think there is a solution for everything you have mentioned. There are some solutions for some aspects. So let's talk about 340, about this goal. There are some solutions that bring us closer to the compliance with these regulations, but for now, these are expensive. Biofuels are expensive, as Ioannis said before. We are already dealing with this in a different way. They have a different taxation than conventional fuels. We have energy mix in some companies, in some industries, in order to cover to some extent these expenses. So one solution could be to have falsy LNC. So if you have an engine, for example, that uses LNG allows you to go to 2040. These are short-term solutions. Everything that has been mentioned, hydrogen and so on, are very nice solutions, but right now they are not on the table because we do not have the legislative context, and we are legislators, so we need this, of course. And we also have many discussions, many researches, and I think people understand now to a great extent that what we are talking about is a middle solution in order to move on. But I think we all understand that we will be obliged at some point of the time that the hydrogen use will increase. We do have this need, but for now we have what we have. Alexandros, Elias.
Με το Fuel EU θα πω και λιγάκι το παράπονο μας ως
we have Fuel News, so I would like to express our complaint as well as an industry. The goals
άνθρακα στα καύσιμα που θα προσπαθήσει να επιφέρει ή προσπαθεί να επιφέρει το Fuel EU.
Reducing
είναι κάτι το οποίο εντάξει είναι ακόμη υποδιαπραγμάτευση και μπορεί να γίνει και πιο αυστηρές ακόμη απαιτήσεις στις μειώσεις σταδιακά μέχρι το 50.
Even stricter
requirements in decreasing emissions.
But as an industry, we will deal this problem by using biofuels. We'll try to have energy mixes in order to be able to comply to the requirements of this regulation once it is completed. But we must say that if we want to reduce emissions, why don't we impose that to producers of fuels? How can we talk about security and safety issues
με τη χρήση νέων καυσίμων, χωρίς να σκέφτεσαι και να θεωρείς ότι αυτό το καύσιμο θα το λειτουργήσουν ναυτικοί, οι οποίοι δεν θα είναι ενδεχομένως και προετοιμασμένοι για να δουλέψουν στο μηχανοστάσιο στο πλοίο με ασφάλεια. Πέραν όμως από αυτό, βλέπουμε ότι
So we see that there are some insufficiencies in our measures. As said before, instead of legislation addressing the producers of the fuels, they are trying to get the shipping industry involved. They talk about penalties and so on, but we think that fuel suppliers must also take responsibility in this aspect, and this should not be narrowed to the geographical area of Cyprus and Greece. When we are talking about fuels that are compliant, we must be able to get these supplies by other countries that do not necessarily belong to the European Union. So I think that the suppliers must also ensure that their fuels comply with the regulations of the European Union, and we shouldn't be the only ones that are taking these regulations into consideration. Europe is legislating about something that cannot be controlled outside of the borders of the European Union. We might get our supplies from Asia, from Africa, or from other places. But we will not have the same regulations there. So once these fuels arrive in our countries, they will say, but this does not comply with the European Union legislation. So the European Union has understood that we have this gap in the legislation, and they're trying to take measures to improve it. We didn't manage to convince countries to
Αντιλαμβάνεστε
check
τώρα,
the suppliers
βάζοντας
of
αυτά τα κριτήρια μέσα, το τι
fuels.
θα γίνει εκεί έξω στην προσφορά καυσίμων στην ναυτιλιακή βιομηχανία. Όμως, εμείς είμαστε υπόχρεοι και θα κάνουμε το παν να παίρνουμε πετρέλαιο, να κάνουμε τις προσμίξεις που θα μας βοηθήσουν να μην υποστούμε κυρώσεις, με την ευχή ότι σύντομα και θα έχουμε τα νέα καύσιμα. Και τα νέα καύσιμα θα έχουμε ηλία. Αυτή τη στιγμή τα πηγαίνει γεμάτα μέχρι το 25. Δηλαδή δεν το συζητάμε και το νέο καύσιμο να το έχουμε, μηχανές δεν θα έχουμε. Και μετά είναι το θέμα που θα αγγίξω αργότερα της παροχής αυτού του καυσίμου, του νέου καυσίμου, ανά το παγκόσμιο. Το θέμα του bunkering, όπως το λέμε εμείς, σε παγκόσμια βάση. Οπότε θα αφήνω μέχρι εκεί, κάνω το μικρό μου παράπονο, το μικρό μας παράπονο, και λέω ότι εμείς σίγουρα αυτό που θα μας ζητήσουν οι νομοθέτες θα προσπαθήσουμε και είμαστε υπόχρεοι να το εφαρμόσουμε για να μην υποστούμε και τις κυρώσεις, αλλά και για το περιβάλλον, γιατί όπως είπε και ο Γιάννης, έχουμε μια μικρή συνεισφορά στο παγκόσμιο στατιστική και στα ποσοστά ρήπων, αλλά και εμείς θα κάνουμε το δικό μας κομμάτι για να παραθρακοποιηθεί η ναυτιλία.
Προηγουμένως που έκανε τον υπολογισμό ο Γιάννης για το πόσο θα κοστίζει παραπάνω η γραβάτα, φαντάζομαι δεν έλαβε υπόψη του την οδηγία για τη φορολογία της ενέργειας. Δηλαδή, τα ορυκτά καύσιμα θα έχουν 10,75 ευρώ ανά γίγατζουλ, ενώ θα πάμε στο 0,15 ευρώ πάλι ανά γίγατζουλ σε ηλεκτρική ενέργεια, βιώσιμα βιοκαύσιμα, βιοαέριο κτλ. Είναι και αυτό ένα κομμάτι που νομίζω ο Πάνος θα πρέπει να μας πει. Η Κύπρος και πολλές χώρες στον κόσμο είναι εξαρτημένοι από ενεργειακώς. Οπότε σκεφτείτε, το είπαμε προηγουμένως και την ανταγωνιστικότητα, αν εφαρμοστεί, αν αναθεωρηθεί η οδηγία και έχουμε αυτό το πέναλτι από το 0,15 στο 10,75, νομίζω ότι η γραβάτα θα την κόψουμε. Θα κόψουμε τη γραβάτα και ενδεχομένως κάποιοι να κόψουν και το γάλα στο σπίτι. Αλλά όχι από τώρα.
In milk as well in our households. Yes, I didn't take into consideration the type of fuels. And of course, I think it was mentioned very correctly by Ioannis. Macron said that the times of abundancy are now over. This is scary. France says that, and if Germany wants to reduce heating by 15 degrees, this is scary. This is very scary for us here in Cyprus. Yes, of course. And they didn't take into consideration, as we didn't either, the cost, the energy costs of our activities. We are used to consuming in a way that is not sustainable, and this will have to change. We will have to be more sufficient in what we do as a society. And I think in Cyprus, we are at about 80 to 20 regarding fossil fuels and biofuels. So this translates into 100 millions of euros, if I might say that. So this cost will be imposed to consumers. I think this directive will try to protect consumers as well, but this is, of course, a great issue, and this needs to be taken into consideration by the ministry and by the government, and see how we can accelerate these processes in order to have energies that are generated from renewables. I think we do have many temporary solutions. We have many improvements that we can make. We can make isolations in our houses, improve our transportations. These can be renewed and incorporate costs and see what we can save from this directive regarding the taxation.
George has already talked about the energy mix and how they see the future in Cyprus. We haven't talked about biofuel. Yes, there is something that would strengthen the efforts of the shipping industry advanced biofuel and methane. Just something quick about biofuel. In Cyprus, we did not reach the target of 2020. We are at 7.3% compared to 10% that was the target. We're talking about biodiesel of second generation. We have a little bit of HVO, first and second generation. And petrol in the shipping industry is almost half of the consumption that we have in transport. So, what can be done? Cyprus is a small country, it is an island. Electric mobility can be further promoted because of the short distances. Although there is a lack on the market, there is a shortage on the market of electric vehicles. So I think the car industries don't have time right now to produce all the cars that citizens need, electric cars need. There is also the issue of sustainable mobility. In Cyprus, we are lagging behind. We don't see people walking or cycling or using the buses. So there is a lot to do in that area. And with better roads, and we have some projects going on, this is an important part, and I think that in the next 10 years this will move forward, especially electric bicycles, electric motorcycles, as we see in other countries, in addition to electric cars. So with these alternative solutions that are available today, there is the hydrogen technology and all of that, but all this is costly and it will take time. And we shouldn't place a lot of focus on that. Yes, focus on technology and development and raise awareness in the public, but as I said before, the ETS issue should be reconsidered at European level. The purpose of ETS was to help green growth and increase prices. Now that prices are so high, ETS should be readjusted to energy prices for as long as Europe is dependent on third countries. If we can become self-sufficient as Europe, and energy efficient, because this is one of the main pillars of the new energy package, and in our grant schemes, if you don't do savings, you're not getting a grant on photovoltaics. You need to save energy because we're trying to promote that culture, and it is also more efficient. Ioannis, do you think that methane and hydrogen could help the shipping industry? I think that I have already said that non-carbon fuel is the solution. And hydrogen, and from what I remember from my chemical engineering studies, is that yes, when you do all the pros and cons, and the hydrogen will not add to emissions. It does emit carbon dioxide, but it does not change world balance. So this is the solution. But we should clarify certain things. George talked about electric bicycles, etc. In the shipping industry, we need to understand that it's not the same thing. For a ship to leave China, for example, to get to United States, they cannot row there, they cannot do rowing, they cannot do sailing. There are some modern sails that can take advantage of the wind energy, and that can be used in some cases. But of course, we need to have a good network of the new fuel, a global network, so that vessels can travel across the Atlantic. If I don't have enough fuel to go from Nicosia to Limassol, then and I stop in the middle of the way, then it's not such a big deal. I will find somebody to get me some petrol. But if you're a vessel, if you're a ship and you're in the middle of the Atlantic and you don't have enough fuel to finish your trip, then that's another thing. That's like a death sentence. So we need to have the infrastructure in our ports and also the capacity. We don't have either at the time. We do have ships running on hydrogen. It's not pure physics. Yes, we do have that. The technology is there. But these vessels will go from A to B. So this is the so-called short sea shipping, and you can use batteries to recharge with renewable sources. But for long distances, what to do? So, of course, there is the problem of pollution with vessels, and this should be the philosophy. And in the Fit for 55 package, we have the infrastructure and alternative fuel as well. We should look at this as a whole. We need to resolve a series of problems so that the shipping industry can respond and achieve zero emissions. Yes, this is the future, but a lot needs to be done. In Cyprus, we have the startups that are actually producing biomethane and other forms of fuel. And I think George at the ministry knows much more about this than me. So there are efforts locally because Cyprus has a blooming industry selling fuel to vessels. I think that you said it is a big percentage, that a big percentage of the petrol imported in Cyprus, approximately half, goes to vessels. So if tomorrow we have this obligation on vessels, we don't want to strangle the shipping industry, and we have to look at everything in a holistic way. In the consultations now in Europe, there is a team amongst we have become one team with the ministry, all the stakeholders involved, and we're discussing all of that, because we have to address these issues as a team. So the future is non-carbon fuel on condition that we will have the infrastructure and the necessary quantities. To accelerate a little bit, because I'm looking at time, just to add something. You have talked so much, George, today. Yes, just teasing you. Just some figures, 117,000 tons.
Σαν πετρέλαιο ναυτιλίας ονομάζεται, αλλά το σημαντικό είναι να χωρίσουμε
But the important thing is to distinguish the technologies, because the shipping industry is not just one thing. As Europe, we need to see this. Short itineraries within Europe, for example, focus on these. Some countries are doing that. And then look at international shipping. I will need to be a little bit more audacious here. On the one hand, I understand the ambition and the philosophy and the targets. On the other hand, I believe that both for 2030 and 2050, in order to achieve the targets, we need to suppress the second thermodynamic law. So all this is very good, but right now, as my friend Alexandros said, we have vessels that are being built right now. They are far away from these technologies, and these vessels will be at sea for 25, 30 years, so it's impossible for the shipping industry to demand that. And we should decriminalize the shipping industry, because Of course, all the goods arrive here by boat. And are you going to blame me for climate change? No. So anyway, I would like to hear Maria and Alexandros. How close are we? So all the efforts are good, the incentives and the penalties are good. But I don't know, from a technological point of view, if we can provide solutions so that the end user, who at the end of the day, I would say, okay, I can pay for this to be implemented. So what can we do that? Where are we standing right now? So let's take this step by step. I would say that the only solution right now to achieve the targets for the IMO, for SAI and IXL, is the slow steaming. So we need to cut down on speed to achieve the targets. We need to be realists on that. Of course, there are some energy-saving devices which provide some improvement, but this is so small that the EPL is, or SAPO is the only way forward, depending on what you want to do. I want to believe that later, as there are some investments and billions are being invested in reaching those targets, especially at European level, and I want to believe that later we will have the suitable technology to achieve these targets. And as far as I see, in the Greek shipping companies, most of them have started cutting down on their engines in order to be in line with the requirements. So also, of course, there's all the goods that consumers need. And this is a bit difficult to tackle. I want to apologize to my friend Ioannis because of my complaint earlier. Of course, we have an excellent collaboration with them, and they are trying to impact consultations in Europe and bring in the voice of logic and make them understand what shipping is. So I know we don't have much time, and I fully agree with Ioannis. I would say that our independence and reducing carbon emissions by 2030, I think that we will have the technical solutions at the time that are being proposed by the IMO in 2023. Maria has mentioned some of the solutions that ship owners are working on, and I think that there will be a huge disruption, especially the carbon intensive indicator, the performance of the ship. This may show that we are achieving the target in practice, but this is not certain. We have to wait and see by 2030. And Ioannis, of course, some vessels will be in a disadvantageous position because of the ranking to reach the target of 2050. We cannot do this only with technological means. We need to find new fuel. We need to do this at global level. Otherwise, there is no solution for the decarbonization of the economy. Firstly, I think that we have had a very interesting discussion on all these subjects, on all these aspects. I would like to say that studying Fit for 55, I also believe that we need to do some interventions. I know that the Cypriot government has intervened in that direction. Perhaps we need to do some more on that, because, of course, this is not a package of measures that will need to be implemented in a horizontal way across Europe. I apologize for interrupting you, but we have a live session now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.